So the Packers just beat the Tennessee Titans 30-14. And so now with Malik Willis as the Packers starting quarterback, the past 2 games, the Packers are now sitting at 2-0 with Jordan Love injured. So this is like the best case, best possible scenario we could have been in with Jordan Love spraining his MCL. There were some questions as to whether he would play in this game. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to go. But Malik Willis came out here, and I think he was the biggest bright spot of this game was Malik Willis. We'll touch on the Packers defense, how insane the pass rush was, how insane the forcing turnovers was once again for this Packers defense. But starting off, I think we need to give Malik Willis a ton of credit. First off, for last week with what he did, being in here in Green Bay for a short time, the Packers ran the ball at one of the highest levels I've ever seen from a Packers team. And today, coming into this game, the Titans had to know that the Packers wanted to run the ball. The Titans' defense, as we talked about in the preview prediction video, was much better than the Colts, especially when it came to the running defense. And early on, the Packers weren't really able to get much going on the ground with their running backs. Malik Willis was able to scramble for a good amount of yards. And so in this game, Malik Willis did have to sit back there in the pocket and make some throws, where last week he wasn't really called on too much to do that. This game, we saw much more from Malik Willis as a passer, and he was insanely good in that regard. Like, I was shocked as to how good Malik Willis was passing the ball. A few different 3rd and longs, and he's throwing like absolute dimes to guys like Christian Watson to convert for first downs. And I was just thinking as I was watching that game, the Titans traded him away for a 7th-round pick a few weeks ago. And just looking at Malik Willis in this game and Will Levis has a ton of talent. He has a great arm. He makes a lot of bad decisions. But watching this game, I mean, Malik Willis looks like the better quarterback. So if I'm the Titans, I am probably questioning my decision to trade Malik Willis out of Tennessee and to see what he was able to do not only with his arm, 13 of 19, 202 yards, 1 passing touchdown, 120.9 rating, but he also ran the ball, led the Packers team in rush yards, 6 carries for 73 yards, 12.2 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. And I think, coming out of college and being in the NFL, everyone knew that Malik Willis was an insane athlete. The question for him was, can he make the right decisions? Can he keep the ball and not, throw a lot of turnovers? Because during his first 3 starts in Tennessee, that's sort of what took place. And so far with the Packers, he has been pretty much lights out. He has thrown, to start the drive, the Packers passed the ball. I think it was to Jaden Reed. Then a nice ball he just put up for Christian Watson. And it was just amazing to watch Malik Willis ball out this entire game. And so it's awesome to see the Packers now at 2-0 with Jordan Love being sidelined the past 2 games. And now to the Packers and their defensive performance in this one. Last season, the Packers had 7 interceptions with Joe Barry as defensive coordinator. And now, after just 3 games, the Packers have already tied that with 7 interceptions total. Will Levis was a pick 6 to Jair Alexander. It was a great read by Jair, jumping the route. Will Levis should never have made that throw. And that's something we've consistently seen so far this season from Will Levis, is just making mistakes and not making the right reads, putting the ball where he shouldn't, throwing balls he shouldn't throw. And coming to this game, we talked about the fact that the Packers leading the league in turnovers, the Titans leading the league in giveaways, turning it over to the other team. And so in this game, it's not surprising to see the Packers force 2 interceptions, one of which was Xavier McKinney for his 3rd straight interception. And of course, that fumble where Kingsley Enagbare just completely beat the right tackle. It was insane pass rush. Comes in, sacks Will Levis. The ball flies out. Lucas Van Ness jumps on it. And so the Packers once again win the turnover battle. Titans turned it over 3 times. The Packers turned it over 0 times. So the Packers have done a good job this week in, not forcing silly turnovers. And so another big aspect of this game was the Packers pass rush, which coming in hadn't really played that well so far when you look at production for sacks and sack rate. They had been 16th when it comes to pressure percentage. That all shifted today. And I think it was to be somewhat expected because this Titans offensive line through 2 weeks had been the worst in the NFL. They'd allowed the highest pressure percentage at about 53%. And the Packers took advantage, finished with 8 sacks, which I'm pretty sure they put a stat up that said it's the most sacks by a Packers defense since I think 2005 since 2005, that's the most sacks by a Packers defense. And so tons of guys got going in this one when it comes to the Packers and their defensive line. Let me pull up these stats here if it will let me to show, who led here in sacks. We had Kingsley Enagbare. He may have been my MVP on the defensive line today because he was just making a ton of noise all day long. 1.5 sacks for him, 0.5 sacks for Edgerrin Cooper, 2 sacks for Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness with a sack, Isaiah McDuffie and Quay Walker both with half a sack. And so this pass rush was feasting, especially at the end there where the Titans were having to pass the ball. They were just sitting back and rushing at will. And, the first 2 weeks we faced off against Jalen Hurts, Anthony Richardson, and the plan was to sort of contain them and, not really go as hard, to get out of your rush lane to try to make a sack, to sort of making sure you're keeping them in the pocket. It felt to me like that sort of shifted today, and those guys were just, going hard the whole time. They weren't really trying to contain as much, it seemed to me, and it really paid off in this game. And so that's good. That's a promising thing to see, the Packers defense really showing up against a Titans offense that has been one of the worst in the league this season. Coming in, they're 24th in points scored per game. Will Levis has been one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks, throwing some of the most turnovers, and it's good to see the Packers taking advantage. And so with Jeff Hafley, with him coming in here to Green Bay, one of the biggest things that we thought we'd see is a shift in aggressiveness, and I think we have seen that. We've seen what it's led to when it comes to forcing turnovers. The guys, they just seem to be playing a lot harder. After the first drive, I was slightly concerned because Will Levis was picking apart the Packers secondary on that first drive where they came down and scored a touchdown. So that was not a good start, but after that, I think the pick six was the next series. And then for the rest of the day, outside of one other series, the Packers secondary is playing really, really well. And then just to get these if the Packers can keep getting 2 to 3 turnovers a game, it's going to be really hard not to win games, especially when the Packers offense is not turning the ball over. And so far with the Jeff Hafley defense coming into this game, they weren't ranking super high in some different statistical categories like points scored and yards allowed, things like that. But they had ranked really high when it comes to turnovers, forcing turnovers, and that happened once again today. And so to see it happen consistently, awesome to see. And Xavier McKinney was the biggest signing this offseason for the Packers, and he came through once again with another interception. And so to have him back there just able to, when quarterbacks just throw the ball up on deep shots, he has so much speed that he can just cover, half the field once the ball goes in the air. And so we're gonna see a lot more interceptions from him as well. And so all in all, the fact that the Packers are now 2-1 and Jordan Love hasn't played the past 2 games, this was the best possible scenario. And even thinking about Malik Willis and what my expectations were for him, I was sort of just thinking, okay, he's an inexperienced quarterback. In the past, he's struggled with decision-making and throwing some interceptions in his first year starting. It was about 2 years ago. And my hope coming in is that he would just make wise decisions and not turn the ball over. Basically, don't lose the game for the Packers. Just do enough to keep this team afloat. And he has far surpassed that. He has played better than I think I even expected, the heights he could reach. And someone asked me on Twitter during the game, would you rather the Packers, if they could get a high draft pick for him, if someone offered a draft pick, would you rather them trade him away or keep him? And I think my thought process is to have a backup who can come in there and help you win games. That's something that all teams, want to have, because it's just tough when your star quarterback goes down like Jordan Love. It sort of feels like all hope is lost. But when you have a guy like Malik Willis playing like he has, that has to feel very good, because come playoff time, injuries can happen at any moment. And so I think that to have Malik Willis on this roster, it's just it's a blessing now, especially seeing how well he's played. And I even tweeted, if Malik Willis, continued to play at this level, I really think the Packers will make the playoffs with Malik Willis as their quarterback. That's how good he's been, paired with the defense and a lot of nice blocking by the receivers, the tight ends. The rushing attack still overall was solid today. 37 carries, 188 yards, 5.1 yards a carry. There was a lot less damage done, though, by the running backs. Emmanuel Wilson and Josh Jacobs got going a little bit later in the game. Wilson had 12 carries, 50 yards, 4.2 yards a carry. Josh Jacobs, 14 carries, 43 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. Jaden Reed, 2 carries, 19 yards. And so this offense has been, I mean, insane how much the Packers have, how much success the Packers have had. And a lot of that credit goes to Matt LaFleur. A lot of the credit goes to Malik Willis, that they've been able to scheme up these, these game plans, and they've dominated. And you look at the Titans defense coming in, they were the best in yards allowed and best in yards per play allowed. So it's not like this is a bad defense. It's a pretty solid defense, a pretty solid defensive line, and the Packers were still able to put up 378 yards on offense. So we'll see what happens with Jordan Love. We'll see if he plays next week. Who knows? If you're the Packers, it's like if he needs a little more rest, it's fine. Malik Willis is playing out of his mind right now. So feels good to be sitting at 2-1. But if you guys want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.